Hello everybody, welcome to the Over the Board Journey to National Master, Episode 3. On this episode I'm going to be covering my first two games in the Indianapolis Open, which was last Saturday, the 23rd to 24th. I played on the 2-day schedule, so I'll be going over my first two games on the 2-day schedule, which was a 60-minute and 10-second delay for each player. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I'm just going to be doing what my thoughts on the game are and some light opening analysis as well to try to make an improvement. And hopefully that'll be interesting. So let's jump right into it. I played against one 1900, one 2000, and three 2100s. I think I played probably the best chess I've ever played in Over the Board, but simultaneously pretty disappointed in how I pushed advantages against higher rated players. I felt like I did a good job of being in the game for every game, but I lacked the seemingly the confidence to convert my best positions into wins. I gave away a lot of half points. Some equal positions fell to losses, and some wins fell to draws. So, but on the other hand, felt like we played well until those points. But maybe that's how we should feel after every tournament. I don't know. Anyway, game one was against a 1900, and we played black. He started off with e4, chess space. Started with e4. We played c5. We're playing the Sicilian. Knight f3, e6, d4. Sorry, e4. No, d4. I wrote the wrong move down. Knight takes d4 and knight c6. And here opponent took about like 5 minutes to play knight f3, knight c3, which I thought was a little weird. And then after queen c7, our opponent took maybe 20 minutes. And this was a two-day schedule, so we only have 60 minutes with like a 10-second delay. So he was almost at like half of his time, and then played knight b5. So I'm wondering if he's just never seen queen c7 before. It's kind of strange if he hasn't. But we go back, and I thought he was like trying to bait me when he played bishop e3. I thought he was trying to go into this line where we have to take check and go here, and then white gives up 3 minor pieces for the queen. I've practiced this position before, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. It's kind of a weird imbalance, but the general idea is to just get your king over, knight f6. Everything's fine for black here, as long as you know the variation. If you don't know the variation, you just lose. But I played a6 immediately, and he goes knight back in queen c7. So he's used half his time and we've reached the most normal position coming from the Sicilian Khan. So not sure what all the thinking was about. After this, he plays, I believe, bishop. Also, something I want to point out is that this position. If he doesn't play knight b5, he plays bishop here, a6. Notice that this is the same exact position as a6 a move later. He's wasted an extra tempo playing knight b5, and I've wasted an extra tempo playing queen b8 back to queen c7. So it's like a way to I don't know. I don't think there's any reason for white not to play knight b5 if they're going to play this anyway, because it just gives your opponent an opportunity to make a mistake. But I don't know why he spent so long on that move. Queen c7. Right, after queen c7, he plays a3, which is kind of like a delaying type move. Generally, as I've said in my rapid series against a3, we're just going to develop our queen side as fast as possible. So I start with b5, and then he plays knight takes c6, queen takes c6, and then bishop e2. And here we have to be careful, because I think there's some annoying lines where if for some reason I don't develop my bishop right away, here's bishop e2, and then this is an inevitable encumbrance to my position. It's super awkward to deal with at that point. So bishop e2, we immediately play bishop e7. I believe. No, he doesn't play that. What does he play? Queen takes c6, queen d4. And here we play bishop b7. And he plays bishop e7 here, rook c8. And now here, what I was thinking was we just move back. And now this pawn's kind of pinned, as this is not favorable for him. So easy enough there. Queen d4 first probably was most critical. Although he's keeping his options to castle on both sides, although it's pretty awkward for him to castle queenside here, since I have spent my last however many moves developing that side of the board, which is kind of why I did that. So he castles kingside. And at this point, I'm pretty happy with the position. I feel like it's pretty queen d4, I don't know, is very common here. It feels like he's just lining up his pieces for if he ever wants to play f4, it's difficult now. But I can't play bishop c5 yet because the pawn is hanging, so I have to do one more developing move, and then I have bishop c5 as a huge threat, because it's going to force a bunch of exchanges. And in general, I think, because I haven't castled yet, exchanges favor me for the endgame, because he does have the queenside majority, but our structure is pretty good against that right now. And we already have pressure against his backwards-ish pawn, and we have ways to gain more space there as well. So he castles kingside, and I go knight f6, and then he plays f3, which strikes me as a really weird move, inviting the exchanges. I guess he's trying to play against my bishop, but I feel like he's making his bishop worse. Although I will say his bishop is targeting my weak pawns. Maybe he's going to get a5 in, although obviously it doesn't work right away because of b5. But it just feels like he's greatly limiting the scope of his pieces and then inviting the trades, which is now forced. He basically has to trade into the endgame, at which point my king would be more centralized, and we got, I want to say, just a better structure. So bishop c5, queen takes, bishop takes, rook takes. And then he plays rook a d1. And here I was debating between king e7 and d5. I felt like if I played king d7, I was inviting... I'm not sure what I was so hesitant with king e7. I felt like I was going to lose a chance to play d5 for whatever reason. I was maybe worried about a4. But after knight b5, I think we're totally fine. sorry, after b4, we're totally fine. His knight has no very good squares, as a5 will cover the knight jumping to here. So I think that even that's good for me. Kind of just shows how awkward this position is here. But things are still relatively equal. And I moved the wrong rook too. It was, no, that is the right rook, never mind. Anyway, I played d5 here. Probably unnecessary. I think the computer prefers king e7. I'm basically forced to take more exchanges, which I do. I take with the bishop here because my bishop feels like the weaker piece given how all my pawns are on light squares. So bishop takes, knight takes. And then I think he plays, can I promote this variation? I think he plays so move 19, he plays bishop d3 here. Getting on this diagonal. Yeah, greatly improving the bishop. And mainly the idea is to protect c2. Okay, now that I'm looking at it. So that makes sense. Does this make sense though? Is this what happened in the game? Not understanding the position so much right now. What was actually played here? Rook a d1. I think he played king f2 first. If I had to guess. No. I took with a knight. I'm sorry. This is my mistake. Bishop takes d5. Oh yeah, that's correct. d5. It did not take with the knight. I did not end up with the knight. I wanted to keep it bishop versus bishop. I don't know why. And I don't know which the engine would prefer either, to be honest. I'm not sure if I would have taken knight here, he would have played rook d2, knight here, rook here. Maybe just been just fine. For example, that variation. Okay, so if it was actually knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, knight takes, rook here, rook here. I feel like maybe he can get something going. But now I think a5 is a threat because it deflects my pawn, or I lose this pawn. So he's getting a passer after this, I think. For example, king here, or what's his move, right? No, it's my move. King e7, a5. It just seems like a very difficult thing to deal with. If I go here, he has a passer here that he can protect really easily. And if I takes this, he has a passer in the c file, and with his rooks in the position as they are, and the light squared bishop covering, I feel like it's outperforming my knight here. My knight's kind of awkward, especially in handling these. Although maybe no, it's doing a good job. He's gonna get his majority pretty active, or even hunt down this pawn and just have connected passers. So this feels like a worse position for me than what happened in the game with bishop takes, where things are now much more even. I'm always gonna have this as a resource. Yeah. So anyway, bishop takes. He does not play a4. He plays bishop d3, and we play king e7. Plays rook a d1. And I play rook d1, rook d8 here. The main idea being this is now pinned, the pawn. So by playing rook d8, I am reinforcing this in case mainly I was worried about my rook being deflected by b5, which seems was probably what it's going to do if I didn't play rook a d8. I think I'm just losing the game. Like, for example, rook c8, the variation just blunders to b4, and I think we lose a pawn. If I go here, for example, bishop takes, pawn takes, rook. Okay, maybe in that position we don't lose a pawn, but it's just, you see the idea. It's kind of just an awkward threat to just allow in the position, so that's why I played rook a d1. It's going to be an open file anyway. It's actually the only open file in the position. Everything else is semi-open, even though this is probably something we should be targeting, although I don't think I'm ever going to win this, but using it as a target, we don't necessarily have to win it for it to have positional value. Just by threatening this piece, we can either force him to make a weakening pawn move, or we can restrict his pieces to having to defend it. So it's not necessarily even about taking it. It's just using this as a resource. I think that's what that target means more than anything else. So he plays bishop d3 here, promote this variation. King e7, rook fe1, rook d8, and I think he plays king f2 here. Now, my idea here is to even further restrict his majority, and then start building up my own majority after maybe an exchange or two, and use either the space on this side or a combination of both to win the game. I think my position is just slightly better here, just due to the activity of my pieces against his weaknesses. So my goal in this regard is a5. If I can get, for example, b5 in after takes, his majority is stuck because he can't push c3. It's just going to create another weakness on the diagonal, or on the file that I already have my rooks on. And if he plays b3, obviously his majority is completely in tatters because he's got one pawn controlling two. So that's my idea behind a5. I'm trying to induce extra weaknesses in his majority, and I'm not too worried about something like c6 because, again, first off, it gives me complete reign over the light squares around here, so maybe I can create like a light square fortress. And secondly, it's not very conducive to actually activating the majority. I feel like my pawns so far up at the board are doing a good job of preventing him from getting his necessary passer, and it's just kind of a nuisance for him to deal with. Anyway, king f2, play a5. And then here he plays what I think is a really bad move, rook a1. He's somewhat low on time at this point, but he gets very low on time a little bit later on. But rook a1, he's countering the idea of b4, because after takes, obviously now his rook's on the open file, but I'm not forced to take on b4 by any means. So here I decide, in order to continue, I want to trade off the light squared bishops. Especially if my pawns end up in this sort of formation, both on light squares. I don't think I'm too interested in having that problem. So I play bishop c4. And here he plays back and offers me a draw. This seems like a really weird move. I feel like he should just take here and play c6 maybe. And even though I'm still slightly better here, notice that this doesn't work because of rook up. But I feel like the game's still pretty even. I mean, it's a rook end game with equal material. And my rook's only slightly better, and your king's pretty active. But here he allows me to damage his structure, which he didn't have to. He didn't have to allow that. So the fact that he allowed it is pretty good for me. So he takes d3, and now here I'm pretty confident because I have a pretty clear plan of just improving my pieces, and then eventually these are going to become super weak, and he can't really access my position in any meaningful way because of my control over the c-file. The only way is through this, but it doesn't have any good angles here. That being said, I'm not sure I played this the best. Definitely trying to activate my king. Now that this is like a permanent barrier, he can't knock this down. As soon as we play here, he can't ever go here. We just have too many pieces on it. So this is pretty safe for my king here. So we play king d6. He plays king e3. We play king d5, which I think perhaps I should have considered rook here more. After an exchange of the rooks, we can play this and just build up better after forming exchange. Oh, I don't know if that's good actually. I don't know, I feel like I should be exchanging one pair of rooks here. The benefits of my two rooks aren't as good. King d5, he plays rook c1, trying to exchange, which I'm fine with, as previously mentioned. I play rook c8, and then he takes a pair of rooks off the board, which is fine by me. And now here I'm pretty confident that I have some sort of advantage. He plays rook e2, and then even though I'm confident I have some sort of advantage, I'm kind of it's not so easy to continue. I played h5. I'm just trying to gain more space, but it just doesn't seem like a good idea. It doesn't seem to be doing anything. I think I should be playing rook here. I think that's what the computer recommends. And then just slowly using my rook's access to threaten his pawns as they're eventually forced to push forward. Yeah, so I think that would have been better. Although, as soon as I move off this file, his rook's just going to get in. But for example, if he plays like h5, d6, king here, I don't think it's possible, though maybe. I think I'd just play here. g5, rook here, starting to target this pawn again. Well, I think that's actually the main issue, so we just play rook here. And he's going to lose this pawn. Or even king here. We don't have to play rook there. Yeah, because he doesn't have this check, so we just take the pawn. So it's hard for him to deal with the rook in the back rank, but we don't really, this has been the main problem, is I'm not thinking of like the knockout punch. I'm just trying to make moves because they're low in time. I'm trying to make them run out of time, obviously, but it just doesn't seem productive what I'm doing here. And then I play a blunder. I play e5, and this is bad because it allows the move he played, rook d2, followed by d4, forcing his weak pawn off the board. And after that, it has to be equal because pretty even activity and a balanced pawn structure. So e5 allowing him to remove his weakest pawn. Note that this is a fork. Any move, like if I play this now, d5, and I have to take, there's no way to prevent e4, as the square is currently covered with the rook and it's just a fork. So even if I move out of the way, it's still coming off the board, although this position Seems fine for me. I didn't look at this. Oh, well, here he doesn't play e4, he just goes up. It seems better. So I have to give up activity. Yeah, it's just a bad move for the reason I just outlined. But when we play here, I've basically resigned to having a worse position, or sorry, an equal position to do a draw. Then he plays, well, what do I play? I play b4, which is even worse. I shouldn't be allowing pawn exchanges while I think I'm ahead. I'm just kind of panicking. I just want to move my rook over, but there's obviously not enough time to do that if he just plays the right moves. So he takes once, but then he plays b3 here, which doesn't make much sense. I think it's just an error caused by time, but it basically gives us the perfect square for our rook. And notice if we go rook here, now this pawn push isn't possible. So play rook here, king here, and now f4, f5 is nice. His king's gonna get kicked. We're gonna win a pawn, and the win's pretty straightforward from here. I think it was something along the lines of here, f5, king here, rook here, I think rook here. I think he might have done check first. I mean, this part of the game doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just completely winning for me now. I don't think he ever even had time to play rook takes. No, he did go rook a1, and then here this already allows me to force him onto the back rank. Yeah, it was this position. Although admittedly I did kind of misplay here. Check, king here, rook here. I thought for some reason that I had this in promote, but obviously if the rook's here, it doesn't exist, so I had to go king back, but I'm just hunting down the pawn just in time. And he doesn't have enough time to really coordinate anything. So he puts me in a bunch of checks, and we win the game eventually, basically, with our passer. So that was game one against 1900. Well played to my opponent. Let me go ahead and save this. It was a 0-1. Let's play 2 days ago. Anyway, that was game one. Thank you all for watching. I'll go to the next game in the next video. Thank you. Oops. Okay, let's go ahead and do round two. Won the first game, so I'm 1-0. So we're playing against the other guy 1-0 in the 2-day schedule, which is a 2100. So pretty nervous going into this game. He's about 100 so points higher rated than me. But we have black, so we're just going to try and do our best here. Do not have the right tab open. Here we go. So he starts off with d4, so we play our usual knight f6. He goes c4, we go into our Slav. Everything's pretty normal, and then he goes ahead and takes. And whenever somebody does this in a tournament, we all kind of just have to groan, because it's going to be one of those games where it's going to be pretty boring, just structurally. Into the balanced structure, which, if you know, I'm pretty uncomfortable with, which is evidenced by the moves I play. So after bishop f4, I play e6, not a very popular move, immediately cutting off my bishop. Now, bishop f5 is not advisable, because it allows him to pressure my queen, pressure my d5 pawn very quickly with queen b3, and it hits b7 and d5 while my bishop is away, so my queen can't move over to defend. It's similar to an early bishop c6. So here, I think knight c6 is a slight improvement. It's the main line. e6, while not losing, definitely seems like a step in the wrong direction. And so our bishop is going to have trouble for a long time now. He plays e3. We just have a worse version than him. I go bishop e7, trying to castle as soon as possible. He goes knight f3, castles, and bishop d3. So he's pretty much gotten everything he's wanted. He just has a slightly better position with his bishops in better positions. Comparing this piece and this piece to this piece and this piece, it's clear that he's a little bit more comfortable here. And here I come up with a not so solid plan. I just want to get my bishop here to perhaps move to e4, but my bishop super is not that effective here, and that properly damages my structure. But overall, I think this is all stemming from e6 earlier. We should have remained more flexible, and I'm sure our opponent is not too impressed with our play at this point. So we're probably looking to capitalize. So we go ahead and play bishop d7. Play castle. Play bishop c6. Again, my idea is to have more control over e4. Not sure how solid that is as a plan. But my opponent goes ahead and plays knight e5. And here I play knight c to d7. I'm not minding him trading off my bishop. I don't think he's going to at the time I made this move, because this is my not very good piece. This is his best knight. Even though I'm losing the bishop pair, I'm going to be able to push c5 before he can capitalize on the backwards pawn. So I'm very surprised when he takes. Oops. I take back. And now I'm going to get in c5. This would be a lot worse for me if he was able to establish b5 or establish a rook here. But the fact that I'm able to get c5 in is going to give me a lot of space to work with. Because he never really wants to recapture here. As the structure then, I got an active majority, and I perhaps get more play against his queenside pawns than he does against my very solid center structure here. So rook c1, c5, bishop b5, which seems reasonable. Just looking at ideas like pushing my rook around. Now that it's running out of squares, like something like this. So maybe I should just play queen b6 here. But instead I play c takes d4, which I think is a bad move. I'm just comparing the structures. This isn't really a threat that that I'm scared of, because taking this is a more favorable structure than me taking here. As this pawn, as we see after c takes e takes, it does a really good job of controlling key central squares, and I don't really have the ability to activate my majority. And this pawn isn't super accessible. It's not really, even though it's a pawn island. I was taught the difference between a isolated pawn is when it's on a semi or open file, or sorry, on a semi-open file. But pawn islands, although they can be targeted, if the pieces are not in the right place, they're not nearly as weak as isolating these, because the rooks can't really access them. So if he ever, like, say I play queen b6 here, if he ever say takes, this is a much preferable structure, because my majority has a lot more potential. I have better pawns in the center, and his majority on the queen side is going to come under fire. Maybe after I trade off the dark squared bishop, or control this diagonal to get my rook over here, or this rook over here. And my pieces are coming in, and with the solid control over the center, I'm not too worried about any counterplaying the king side yet. So I think that would have been favorable, but he doesn't have to take either. But taking here resolves attention too early. And now queen b6, he has queen a5, rook f d8 is what I ended up playing. But an interesting option is bishop d6 that was recommended to me. Is if bishop takes, queen takes, he can no longer win a piece, and we've traded off the bishop pair. And if bishop here, we have just kicking the bishop away. G5, maybe not the most accurate there, but I think this is preferable as to what happened, which was we're kind of inviting ideas of tactics here with our pieces lined up against this focal point. It's just kind of a scary move. And I'm sure at this point we're probably on the cusp of slightly worse to losing, just because of the way the structure is developed, not in our favor. And also, his pieces are seemingly getting super active, and my pieces are struggling to defend. So anyway, he plays bishop c6, rook c8 is forced. Here he plays an interesting idea of bishop takes d7. Now his idea is if I recapture, now he has knight takes. Since this hits my queen and my knight with check, and this discovers against the rook. So I'm pretty sure this would be losing for me. For example, rook takes, queen takes, sorry, knight takes queen, rook takes, king takes. This doesn't seem great for me, just because of the activity of his pieces compared to mine, and also like I'm still having problems with my back rank, although maybe this is, let's see what the engine says. We have an engine, let's just see what it says about this position. I'm sure it's slightly worse or completely worse for me. White is clearly better, okay, right. Even though materials, well, it's not even equal, he's up basically +2 in material, if we're being materialistic, but we don't have to be. So anyway, taking here isn't really an option, but I do get lucky with a nice intermezzo of rook c4. Now the same tactics don't apply. Say if he moves his queen here, I just take with a knight, and now knight d5 doesn't really work for obvious reasons. And he obviously can't move his bishop away because his queen's hanging, so this kind of diffuses his tactic that he's been building up, and after this I think I'm pretty much on the more equal side. So he goes and takes knight here, the idea being rook takes, knight takes, and he's hitting the rook, and I don't have enough time to recapture my material, so I'd be losing here. So instead of knight takes, sorry, instead of rook takes queen, we take at the pawn. He does rook takes, pawn takes, bishop back, and things are, he has the bishop pair. He's also up a pawn here, though I can immediately recapture this pawn with a tempo against the bishop, but I'm worried about bishop here, queen takes, bishop takes, maybe like rook e1. Well, let me just play this moves out. Like bishop here, bishop takes, or even this bishop takes this first. I didn't like how this looked for me, but I found a nice move here as well with knight d5, and my idea is if bishop e5, we were going to play c3 and cement a nice passer, because he can't take, because if he takes he loses a minor piece. So my opponent actually spent a lot of time on this move after knight d5. It's not so easy to play. He pretty much has to, I believe, stop the idea of c3 one way or another. And only now that bishop e3 isn't an option, I feel comfortable recapturing with my queen. Notice that both these pawns are protected, as bishop here runs into knight here, and queen takes is protected, and he no longer has this option. So I really like knight d5, and I feel like I'm back in this game, which is good. That's good. That's where you want to be. He does bishop a5, and I go ahead and go knight back, protecting c4, and covering my rook while it still remains in the open file. He goes queen c2, rook c8 to protect the pawn, now that the fork is no longer an issue. Bishop c3, we go queen c5 to hit the bishop, and he plays a4. Let me promote this line. Obviously protecting the bishop. We go back to knight d5, now that the pin's no longer a concern. Rook e1. And here I take. I'm just excited to get the bishop pair, but it was recommended to me that perhaps I should look at bishop f6 as an alternative. It's taking so quickly, he doesn't necessarily have to take with the pawn. He can take with the queen. And perhaps he has better play against this pawn than I will against this pawn. It's easier to build up. But taking right away, he takes with the pawn. So we have a balanced pawn structure here. It should be pretty drawish after this because of the opposite colored bishops and a relatively equal activity. And we should both have targets. Hit my target on c3, his target on c4. He can't really target a7. And I can't really target a5, but he also can't push it either because it's supporting his bishop. So it's going to be difficult for either side to make progress here. So I play the natural, bishop c3. He plays g6. I play queen, a3, rook e3. And now I need my piece of paper because I don't remember the line. Okay. Here I play g6. And I think he goes king g7. And what I should be doing, well, right here I centralize my queen again. He goes king here, queen here. Sorry, not queen there. He goes queen here, new variation. Queen e4. I actually offered a draw right around here, which is just not a good play, I don't think. I'm ahead like 5 minutes to his 1 minute with 10-second delay. And after queen d6, he plays queen e4. And here I look at what do I look at here? I think I played, I'm confused now. I mean, my notation ends at g6 because we're both under 5 minutes. Queen c2. Was it queen c2 or was it queen e1? That's a great question to ask. There's queen c2. Maybe this was a position. I might have just blundered this pawn also. But here I played a6, thinking that he'd be forced to go to bishop e8. And then I have some play. But this just blunders immediately. He has queen b6. I mean, he can also take here, but I don't think he can hold on to the extra pawn after queen. Well, maybe not. Maybe he can. My idea is perhaps queen here, but then bishop here. And things look a little rough for me. Just in general, after a6, it's just a weakening move. So I play a6. And he does not go bishop e8. He goes queen b7. And now I'm just losing because I didn't see that this comes with tempo with my rook hanging, and he's going to pick up both these pawns. which really stinks because he's down on time, but I shouldn't be focusing on his time. And also, I learned something to where I've noticed a lot where I'm trying to create threats every move, and as a way to like harm somebody down on time. Like if I create threats every move, I feel like they have to think to address the threats. But at a certain level of player, the position's easier when they have simple threats they have to address, and it's harder when I'm forcing them to come up with a plan. So essentially what I should be doing here is coming up with quieter but more effective moves, like doing what he's doing, basically coordinating my pieces, like king g7 to protect f6, rook here to protect my remaining weak pawns, and then only then work to build up more solid threats. When they're down on time, I should be waiting a couple moves before making these threats, as if I make a threat every move, then their play is kind of simple. They just defend the threat. If they can't defend the threat, they lose, but they're always going to be able to defend the threat because my threats aren't critical. And there's not going to be a critical threat in this type of position just because it's balanced. And so that's where a6 came from. Both me reacting too much to my opponent's time and my misunderstanding of how to pressure somebody on time. Should just be doing much simpler moves. Right now this pawn is hanging, so probably should protect that. Something like here, and then I don't know. What does he even play here? He's got no simple moves. If he goes queen here, just king up. Can't play rook here yet because of the bishop. Like rook c2, or like what does he even play to make progress here? It's very hard to make progress in this position because it's just so equal. It's balanced with opposite color bishops. And this is how I should have played it. I think it's a pretty easy draw, so I'm pretty disappointed to give away the half point here. Felt like this could have been an easy draw, but after queen b7, the game obviously just fizzles out to me losing, as he wins both my pawns on the queen side with no counterplay on my part. But anyway, that was day 1 of the tournament, and I will go over the 3 games on day 2 tomorrow. Thank you all for watching.